My name is Jiles Smith, and welcome to our community. Welcome to our community. Today on our show, we have the privilege of having Scott Nassif, a 3-term member of the Apple Valley Town Council. Welcome, Scott.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Let's jump right into it, if you don't mind.
No problem.
And let's talk about the plans of the town of Apple Valley. What kind of plans do they have in the future?
Well, of course, we have a new council that has come on board. We have 2 new council members that were just recently elected. So we're in our planning stages for the next few years, based on their goals and objectives as well. But you got to remember, we still have our Vision 2020 that's been our roadmap for the future. Entails higher education, entails circulation plan, park and rec, so focus on us, and of course job creation has been a big issue that we're hoping to work on in the future. But we're planning a workshop here in the near future with our new council, and give staff some marching orders and get moving forward. We're looking forward to that.
Right. After 3 terms, and I'm so impressed with 3 terms, you know that, on the council, can you tell us what's some of the best things about serving the people of Apple Valley, and what's some of the most challenging things?
Well, the best thing, of course, is the interaction with the public. It's a great opportunity to talk to people. Of course, with my business, I've got people coming into the stores all the time. You go to the supermarket, you go to restaurants, people come up and talk to you about what's going on in the community. You can actually take that information and use that in your planning process and learn and talk about it. That's probably the most fun thing I have, is just talking about the town. When I go to other communities, when I talk at the state level or federal level or the county level, I can talk about what's happening in the Apple Valley and actually promote it. That's a lot of fun. Probably one of the challenging things, of course, is funding issues and the bureaucracies that you have to deal with at the state level, the county level, and the federal level. So those are very challenging, because the things that their goals and objectives are not always going to meet what your local goals and objectives are, and trying to convey that to the community, convey that to your constituents, isn't always the easiest thing to do, to tell them your hands are tied on certain things. But we move forward.
That sounds real difficult.
Yeah.
Well, let's let the community know more about you. Tell us some of these boards and commissions that you're on.
Been on several boards and commissions over the 10 years. Every 2 years, when we bring on some new council members, or we actually kind of reorganize every year, of course, with the mayor. But every 2 years, we look at our boards and commissions. We look at moving some people around based on their talents and stuff. But currently, I'm on the Victor Valley Wastewater Authority, which is a joint powers authority for, of course, the wastewater. I've been on there for 2 years now, and very excited to get some working on sub-regionals that we are looking forward to in Apple Valley, and get some reclaimed water that we can use on our parks and our golf courses. Sperry is doing the same thing for their industrial park. So that's coming to fruition here real soon, so that's been very exciting. The challenges sometimes there, of course, we had rains back in 2010 that washed out a pipeline in the river. And we have a bypass that we've been working on with FEMA. And we're actually going to we're going to actually move that pipe out of the river and drill through a mountain and run the sewer line outside of the river, because this is about the 3rd time it's washed out in the last 20 or 30 years. So we're gonna fix that. So that's exciting. And then the other thing I really enjoyed that I've been on for all my tenure here in the council is the League of California Cities. I've been the representative for the town. I also sit on the Housing, Economic, and Community Development Committee for the League, which I chaired last year. So I get to be able to disseminate information that's happening here locally to the League of California Cities, and I take information that we get and learn it there and bring it back to our communities. And you get to learn about how other communities meet their challenges and apply those tools to Apple Valley. So that's been very rewarding, and I enjoy that committee very much.
But you said something very interesting. You talked about the new council. You have some new council members on the council now. Could you tell us more about them and how you? I know you got a great working relationship, but tell us more about that.
We have, of course, Kurt Emick and Barb Stanton were new 2 years ago, so they're in their third year. I'm in my 11th year, so I'm kind of the old guy on the council. And then we have Art Bishop and Larry Cusack that were just recently elected. So it's brought a new synergy to the council, a very cooperative effort, and some new ideas and fresh ways of thinking things, and I guess some energy moving forward. Of course, we're kind of coming out of the recession a little bit, and there isn't that downtrodden feeling, woe is me feeling anymore. It's more about the future and the opportunities. So it's kind of exciting about that. The other exciting thing that I've noticed is the synergy amongst all the councils here in the Victor Valley, which I think is important. It hasn't always been a great working relationship in the past years between the communities. Right. But I think, and due to public support, I think they were looking for that. They looked for their officials. When we were campaigning, they were looking for people that can not only work together, but work with other communities and other organizations, because that's really the key to success here in the Victor Valley, is our communities getting together. And I've seen that, and working with the other elected officials in Hesperia, Atlanta, even Barstow and Victorville, you'll see some big changes, I think, coming here in the next couple of years. I'm very excited about.
And we're really looking forward to that. And speaking of big changes, what kind of plans do you have on the council? Do you have any pet projects or focuses that you want to kind of drive home?
I've never changed my focus on what I've done. I think I'm always looking for tools. I've always, at least as far as Apple Valley is concerned, I've always felt that we have a unique culture in Apple Valley and heritage that I always said we need to retain and not lose sight of that as we move forward. And I think that's probably one of the most important things for me. We need to grow, and we need to expand. We need to encompass and create jobs and bring industry to our community. But we can't lose sight of our history and what got us there in the first place, and the quality of life that people expect. So with that in mind, Parks and Rec, some of the events that we do, the Freedom Festival, the concerts in the park, the chili cook-offs, all the things that we do in Apple Valley, we should expand that and try to get more people involved in the community, because that brings everybody together. And then more opportunities for youth, to do things, to play football, to play basketball, to play baseball, and have them get involved in sports and do things and get them out of the house and not play Nintendo every day. So those are important things.
You show your age when you say Nintendo.
Okay. Maybe it's even Atari not anymore, huh?
They got rid of Atari.
I think I still have one of those.
Okay.
So anyway, but that's some of the things that I think are important.
I might come over and challenge you in Pong one day.
Yeah, I think I have that. I think we dug that up when we moved the other day, and I'm afraid to get rid of it because I think it's worth something.
It's going to be worth something.
Maybe it is.
Hey, you're also a local business owner.
Yes.
And I'd like to know from your perspective, is the economy improving?
It's one of the neat things that I'm able to do, because I'm a local business owner and on the council. I can use the information I get on both worlds, or both hats, I guess, to kind of assess what's moving forward. From a business perspective, I can say that at least in the Victor Valley, it's stabilized. The economy has stabilized. I think we are moving forward. There's a lot of indicators that show we're moving forward. I don't see businesses struggling near as much. Consumers are starting to purchase. Our sales tax revenues are starting to on the increase at the town, which is good. I was looking at housing numbers yesterday. We have 192 houses on the market in Apple Valley. Last year we had well over 300 houses. So the inventory is shrinking. The prices have gone up about 10% over last year. So the indicators for the housing market and that is doing well. We're still struggling on the job side. Our unemployment's down slightly, but we need to work on getting more jobs and moving. I don't think it's not going to be a fast recovery, and I think everybody's heard that. But I think we are on the path to in the right direction anyway. So I'm encouraged about that, and I see things moving forward in a positive way over the next few years. It'll be a few years before we get back to maybe what we were 5 years ago, but at least it's encouraging, and people have a lot better and more positive outlook on things.
Well, in our community show, we really focus on education as well.
Right.
It's a big pillar of what we're talking about. And I've always worried about the children coming out for their first job in doing their applications, knowing how to do a basic checkbook, etc. So are you seeing that improve? Because I know back in the day, people would come with an application and
I talk about that all the time. I've been to classes, and sometimes I've brought in classes, gone and talked to the students, and I'll bring in all the applications I get.
Right.
And I'll read them, and I'll show them, and I'll say, would you hire this person or this person?
Right.
You know, and really kind of put that to it. And I think, you know, Tom Holgerman, our superintendent,
great guy.
is,
Great guy.
yeah, he and I work very well. We talk a lot about what's needed by the students. In fact, he's put together the STEM program
Okay.
in Apple Valley, and they met last year, and we just had a meeting, in fact, last Wednesday, and talking about to the community and business leaders he brought together, and he actually was funny. He gave us a math problem to work on, and it was happened to be an automotive math problem.
Right.
So I knew the answer, but I didn't know how I got the answer.
Right.
The other engineers figured it all out, through their slides and stuff. But he was trying to make an example of the kind of things that students need when they get out of school.
Right.
And then he had us all write down what was important to us, mathematically written and reading, and what kind of tools they need. So I think the schools are recognizing that, and that's a good plus, because that carries whether they go right into a job out of high school or whether they go to college. They need those skills. They need to know those interaction skills. They need to know how to interview with people, talk to people, how to interact with other fellow employees and that kind of thing. And I think our schools are recognizing, especially Apple Valley Unified School District. So I'm very, very encouraged with that.
Like I said, I think Tom is a great guy.
He is.
And he's innovative. And I'm going to reach out to him and see if I can get him on the show and talk about education in the future.
He could probably give you several hours, I'm sure, of ideas.
What are some of the key issues in Apple Valley right now?
Well, I think obviously, one of our key projects that we're working on, everybody talks about the Yuckaloma Bridge, that's been a challenge for us, because we're doing something that not very many communities can get done, and that's go across a very environmentally sensitive area, the Mojave River. We're encompassing almost 3 different agencies, because we're working with the state. We're working because we're going across state land. We're using county land. We're in Apple Valley, and we're headed to Victorville. So those things have been very challenging to put that together. But our staff, we have a tremendously talented and professional staff that's helped move this thing forward. Everybody's been talking about this, and you've been around long enough to hear about the Yuckaloma Bridge for 30, 40 years. We're actually getting it done. Permits are in place.
Big deal.
So we should be breaking ground here. And that's a big deal. Some of the other challenges, of course, the state saw fit to eliminate redevelopment.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize, that's a tax increment that was increased over blighted areas by investing in those blighted areas. When the state pulls that back, now you're not investing in the areas, so you're not going to get the increases in property values that you use to reinvest in the community.
Right.
It's a complicated formula, but by the state pulling that back and taking that way, they're not realizing the revenues that they thought they were, because the investment's no longer there. It's kind of like a business. If you invest in a business, you get a return. You no longer invest, you no longer get a return. This is kind of the same formula that we used in redevelopment.
Right.
And so they've eliminated about, as far as investment in the Victor Valley as a whole, it's about, I think it's $7 to $10 million annually in Apple Valley, but it's $30 million a year in the Victor Valley. So you take that money out that was investing in infrastructure to help grow businesses and jobs. It's a big challenge for us to recreate something like that. So that's going to be a challenge moving forward to try to invest in your community without those tools.
Right.
So
there seems to be a strange dynamic in our state that we have, on one hand, to invest in things like that, in parks, etc., in redevelopment.
Exactly.
At the same time, controlling the tax piece. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. Everybody wants to reduce their taxes, especially in this economic climate we're in. So that's a delicate balance.
It is, and of course redevelopment wasn't a tax increase. It was mainly a tax shift from local government to state to balance their budgets, because they felt what they did was more important. But we were always quick to point out that this helped generate income. When people are working, guess what? They're paying taxes, and they're buying product, and they're buying cars, and those type of things. So, our focus, and many people in local government feel that the investment in your local communities was important, and we'll just figure out new ways. We're already working on that with our legislators. There's some tools that are coming, and we'll move forward, and we'll get her done. You know, that's what we do, right?
That sounds good, man. Get it done. Hey, with that, we will have a second half with Scott Nassif here on Our Community. For more information about the CYP, please go to our website at www.thecyp.com. The CYP was started in 2004 and is designed to help educate, inform, and inspire our community. From an offshoot of that, we created the show that you're watching now, Our Community. Welcome, and I hope you are informed, educated, and inspired. And welcome back to Our Community, the second half with Scott Nassif, Town Councilman of Apple Valley. A couple more questions. Let's talk about a good friend of ours.
Okay.
Sheriff McMahon, he was just promoted to the County Sheriff.
Yeah.
I worked with him quite well in Apple Valley. I think he's a great guy. Could you tell us more about, you made a great comment. As a matter of fact, I'll read the comment. You said, the one thing I've always described John, well, of course, Sheriff McMahon, is a solution-oriented. You said he's not only a good officer, but he also understands what happens and how to adjust on the fly, if you want. I'm kind of paraphrasing what you were saying. That's the same experience I've had with him. He's innovative, he's results oriented, he's also willing to be flexible. So I like that about him. What's your comments?
Well, of course, we're very excited because John cut his teeth in Apple Valley as a deputy many years ago. Very familiar. He grew up in Apple Valley with his parents, and of course, he and his family live in Phelan. We're trying to get him back there. We'll work on it.
Work on it.
But nonetheless, he was our captain for a few years as well. And the one thing that we were excited about, the things that he really thinks about being proactive on crime prevention and those kind of things that instead of just kind of reacting to it and just going on calls, is getting his officers involved, getting his department involved, getting the kids interacting and adults interacting with the police department, which has paid big dividends in Apple Valley.
Exactly.
We can talk about a few things here in a second, but I just wanted to point that out. One of the things that he started, he brought a program back that was it's very successful on the East Coast and not as prevalent here on the West Coast, which is the POW program, the Police Activities League. Right. But he took it a little bit further and involved more of the community members and got myself involved, which I'm still involved with business people, and through his leadership started what they call the SHOCK program. And don't ask me what SHOCK stands for because it's very it's basically an accountability program where we take at-risk kids that parents and maybe the school recommend, and we get them involved in this program. And I think last night was the 10th or 11th program. It's a 10-week program, and it's kind of a paramilitary kind of program. Teaches the kids respect, teaches them how to interact, and some things that they may not be getting in their personal lives. And it's really paid some big dividends. And I'll tell you, if you want an emotional experience, go to a SHOCK graduation. I was talking to the lieutenant yesterday, and it's such a successful program that they're getting people from outside our area. Of course, it's only for Apple Valley because it's funded by Apple Valley, trying to get their kids in the program. And he said he's even getting calls outside the state. So I think with John's leadership at the Sheriff's Department, we'll expand programs like that throughout the county, and I think that's real important. And he's that kind of a guy where he'll look at that and enhance the culture of our Sheriff's Department. So we're very excited to see him. You can tell.
If you remember, I served on that same POW board as you when you first started, and we just had great experiences with it. Mr. Cambridge was on the board as well.
Yeah,
and I think he
kind of got started.
Very passionate about taking care of the children early up front in our community, and it's actually paying dividends.
It is. Our crime is even with this. What you've heard a lot about the realignment in with the state has to basically shed 30% of their prisoners, and there's not only sending them down to the county, but they're having early releases, and there's a lot of issues with that. Right. And we can talk about that a little bit too, but. With all that said, we're still having lower crime. Our Part 1, Part 2 crimes are down in Apple Valley, and our calls for service are down, which is the first time that I can remember that happening in a growing community. So I think those type of programs have paying dividends. We have a great, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's. I mean, if you had a chance to meet and work with these guys. They're very, very passionate about the community and what they do for us, and we're very appreciative of it.
You know, as on the Equal Opportunity Commission for the county, I've had some great experiences working with them in diversity and inclusion, and I'm just looking forward to working with them more.
Yeah.
Also, as a part of a program in Victorville, they have a shop with a cop.
Right.
And that was just beneficial. They asked me to get engaged as a community leader, and we reached out to a lot of families and just served benefits. People are still calling me up and emailing me, thanking me for bringing them to the table. And it's helped out a lot of kids too.
I think it breaks down, all those programs break down the barriers,
Yes.
because, you know, a big uniformed police officer with a gun is very scary.
Right.
You know, and then they find out that they're real people,
Yeah.
and they care about the community, and you care about it. All those type of programs, I think, really make it, really help the communities out.
Remember we took them deep sea fishing and all
Oh,
sorts
yeah,
of things?
yeah.
Hey, we talked about the AB 109 and the recidivism rate in the county, and a couple of statistics. Basically, the state parole system, the recidivism rate is 65.1, and the first time recidivism rate is 81.2 in our county. And the re-release rate, and it breaks down to a 73% average, basically for San Bernardino County. I know Councilmember Stanton is really passionate about this subject as well, and I know crime is down, but that cycle that we're creating is really something that I'm concerned about as well. How about you?
Oh, very much so. You know, there's, you know, we talk about being proactive, and you know, Apple Valley's been very proactive with the state. In fact, there's a release program that the state's going to put in, and Apple Valley will be the first one in the state. And what it does, what we need to do, and the state's starting to do this, but we need to be more proactive in this, is prepare these folks that we're putting out back into the community for getting involved in the community. Teach them some of the things we're teaching them in the SHOC programs. A lot of these folks don't have the skills, the social skills to work in the community. They don't have the social skills to get a job. They don't have the knowledge of certain trades. And for the life of me, I think we need to focus on that. I think that is tremendously important. And that has proven in other communities and other counties and state agencies that have done that, the recidivism rate will drop almost 30 or 40, more than half actually, is what I've seen. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think there was one area that had that, and the recidivism rate dropped below 30%, where we're up around 60. So that's something that I think we need, and it's obviously funding's an issue. But how much does it cost us to keep putting these folks back in jail?
Yeah, we keep talking about that.
And so we need to reinvest and rethink that wheel.
I commonly say it costs between $45,000 and $49,000 a year to put a person in prison. It costs less than $20,000 to put them in college.
Exactly.
So that cycle must be broken eventually for us to be successful as a people and as a community. So that's something we're really focused on as well. Last major question, and again we can talk about many other things, and we can talk here for hours just talking about stuff.
Of course.
But our culture here in the high desert, I think it comes down to building aircraft, outdoor racing, if you will, off-road racing, horseback riding, things like that are what we reside in. People move up here. I moved up here, 15, 20 years ago, to get your family out of the cities and live a certain lifestyle. Do you think our culture is still the same over all this time, or is it changing over time? You've been here for what, 53 years?
I think the reasons people move up here are still the same. And of course the area got its teeth cut on logistics and mining. And that's what brought most of the people up here. Then as people started coming, it became a quality of life. You know, the people could drive down the hill, you could live up here, have good, safe schools, a little bit of elbow room in your house, larger lots, those kind of things, and have some recreation on the weekend. You're minutes away from mountains, beach, the river, and of course the weather up here is fantastic. So I think the reasons people move up here will stay the same. We need to make sure that culture stays the same. And of course that includes bike riding, horseback, off-roading, those kind of things. And there's a lot of pressures both from the state and federal, environmentals and all kinds of different kinds of pressures that are jeopardizing those cultural reasons we live up here. I think I often think, I talk to people that live somewhere else and they think we live out in the sticks and we're just in a wasteland, in the desert, and it's not that way. You live up here, you don't have to spend too much time and feel why people want to live up here. The desert's gorgeous, it's beautiful. We need to retain that environment and retain the culture up here, and I think that's important. It's important to me. It's important to people who live up here, and hopefully it'll be important to people that move up here in the future.